Fernando Mendoza, Heisman Trophy winner, now national champion, and potentially the #1 overall draft pick. That plus more comes up on Tuesday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast for January 20th, 2026.
You are Locked On Raiders, your daily Las Vegas Raiders podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome in, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your #1 sports podcast network. We're very proud of that. We're also very proud of the fact that this show continues to grow each and every day, and that's because of your support and the great job that my man Ari does behind the scenes, making sure we look good and sound good by way of the YouTube page. So tip of the cap to you, Raider Nation. Tip of the cap to my man Ari. We shout him out. We appreciate him. He's on Twitter at Ari Produces. You can hit me up as well at your boy Q254. And if you want to be a part of the show, we got the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line for you, 707-654-4693. A lot of calls, a lot of texts. Really, actually, a lot more texts than calls on today's show. We'll have a couple of calls, but multiple texts that we'll get to. A lot of great feedback about the national championship game and the Raiders head coaching search. We'll do that in segment number 3. Segment number 2, we'll actually talk about the head coaching search for the Silver and Black. It'll take a little bit of a back seat to the national championship game and Fernando Mendoza and what he brings to the table. But the latest and the greatest when it comes to the Raiders head coaching search and names that have been eliminated and names that we feel like are on the way, interviews on the way that could really be in line to be the next Raiders head football coach. We'll do that in segment number 2. Here in segment number 1, news and notes of the day, and it all has to do with the national championship game as Indiana beats Miami 27-21. Mark Davis, Tom Brady, John Spytek were all in attendance and then some in the building on the sideline pregame for the game. Thought it was awesome to see everybody there in attendance, knowing everybody was paying attention to Fernando Mendoza, knowing that the Raiders have the #1 overall pick, and just to see them on the sideline, watching him when he warms up, watching him throughout the course of the game, and they were in for a heck of a treat. There's no doubt about that. It was a very entertaining national championship game. Fernando Mendoza was 16 for 27, 186 yards, a touchdown run on 4th and 5 in the fourth quarter. That was huge. And it's so funny, watching the game and looking at the stats and looking at the box score, it wasn't some phenomenal game. You know, it wasn't a Joe Burrow lighted up type game while he was at LSU. It wasn't one of those where he's throwing around the yard for 300, 400 yards and 5 touchdowns. It wasn't even as a dominating performance as he's had so far in the playoffs. I mean, look, going into the national championship game, Fernando Mendoza only threw 5 incompletions. Like, he was 16 for 27. Miami has a defense that's no joke, right? We talked about it on the show leading into it, and I said that, yeah, he's going to struggle. He's going to have to, do everything he can, lay it on the line to win that game because Miami's not just going to roll over and die, and they didn't. But when Fernando needed to have it, he had it, right? He didn't turn the ball over, and when he needed to have certain throws, he had some back shoulder throws that he had on 3rd and 4th down. When it had to have it, had it. And then that 4th down run, 4th and 5, 12 yards. It's a called quarterback keep. He takes it. Not only does he pick up the first down, but he goes 12 yards to the house, gets the touchdown. He has to dive into the end zone, kind of does a little bit of a twist. He showed his toughness. He got hit early in the game, right in the mouth. It should have been a targeting call. It bloodied his lip. They didn't call it. That's fine, right? He wasn't complaining about it. He just got back up and kept on fighting. He got hit early and often by Miami. Miami is a tough, gritty team. Mario Cristobal has got things going right there in Miami. So that team's going to be around for a while. They did it right. They built it in the trenches, and they're a tough bunch, right? And there were some dudes along that defensive line for Miami that made life miserable for Indiana. But, again, when push came to shove, Fernando Mendoza got it done. Again, tough as nails, and there was Sunday players all over the field for both Indiana and Miami. So that's something. I mean, that's just when you look at it and you say, well, what did he do? What did he do? Well, he got it done against Alabama that has Sunday players. He got it done against Oregon that's got Sunday players. And he got it done in the national championship game against Miami that has Sunday players as well. For Indiana, as I mentioned, quarterback Fernando Mendoza, 16 for 27 for the 186 yards in that touchdown run. Wide receiver Elijah Sherratt, he's another guy that you want to pay attention to. He's a really good player for Indiana. He's a guy that if the Raiders are trying to get someone that's comfortable with him, they can get Sherratt, they can get Cooper Jr., another wide receiver. That's a big-time playmaker for Indiana. I would have no problem if they went and got one of those guys, if not both those guys, if they wanted to go ahead and surround him with talent that they were comfortable with. I don't see them going and getting both, but I could definitely see them going and getting one. Another guy that I really do like, and I would love to see the Raiders find a way to get this guy in the 2nd round, maybe even the 3rd round if he's still available, but I don't think he will be. D'Angelo Pons, the cornerback. Man, the dude is only 5'9". He's only 175 pounds, but he plays like he's 6'4". Man, this dude is big. He's not afraid to tackle. Again, he's not big in stature, but he's big in play. He had the pick six on the first play of the game against Oregon, really set the tone in that one, and he had multiple times that he had pass breakups on Monday in the national championship game. And look, he was going up against Malachi Toney, who is a true freshman wide receiver from Miami, who's another Sunday player, who ended up with 9 catches, 115 yards, and a touchdown. And he did that throughout the course of the game against multiple defenders. But when you had D'Angelo Pons on him, that's when you saw that mano-a-mano. They're from the same neighborhood there in Miami, and, man, the dude could play. And I know the Raiders need help in the corner position. Again, I know he's a smaller dude, but similar to what Amik Robertson was, this dude plays big. I would have no problem if the Raiders went and got a D'Angelo Pons. Like I said, second round, maybe third round, but I think he'll be gone by the third round. Miami, you want to talk about Sunday players? Carson Beck, 19 for 32, 232 yards, touchdown, and an interception. Malachi Toney, I mentioned him. Only problem is he's a freshman, a true freshman. So he's not draft eligible. This dude should actually be worrying about the prom, and instead he was in the national championship game. This is the guy who reclassified, graduated early so he could play college ball. So like I said, the prom is what he should have been worried about. Instead, he was trying to win a national championship game. Defensive lineman Reuben Bain Jr., that's a guy that might be the best player in the draft, period. That's how good that defensive lineman is. That guy is Miami's version of Max Crosby, as far as I'm concerned. A guy whose motor never quits at all. And he just gets after it, and he's a game wrecker. Reuben Bain Jr., he's going to hear his name called very early in April's draft, that's for sure. The trenches for both teams are on point. Obviously, Indiana, they went and they spent a lot of money in NIL, as every program is doing now, but they built up the trenches, offensive line, to give Fernando Mendoza an opportunity, and that's what you need to do, right? I mean, I think he proved over the course of the season and throughout the course of the playoffs what he can do if given time. And for a long time in that national championship game, he wasn't getting any time. He was under duress the whole game. Like, Miami was bringing it to him. So if you give him an offensive line, Raiders, if you give him an offensive line, if you go and spend a lot of that $100 million you have in salary cap space to build that line, you have something. This is a guy that can make all the throws. He's got the leadership. He's got it between the ears. He's athletic enough, right? He checks all those boxes, but you have to do him some favors. You have to put a line in front of him. That's not only going to help Mendoza. It's going to help Genty. It's going to help everybody. You've got to be able to put that line in place and put some weapons around him. But he is a guy that you can win with. I have no doubt about that. I had people hitting me up during the game like, hey, I wouldn't draft him. I don't think he's good enough. And I was like, man, I think he is. He feels like he's a guy that can get it done. No, he's going to set the Raiders back. You got to trade back and get more draft capital. The next year will be better. And I was like, man, that's what you say. That's what a lot of people say. I don't see it. I think this guy's got the true leadership. I think Tom Brady's going to love working with him. And I just think that that's the way to go for the Raiders. They got the number 1 overall pick. Obviously, once they get their head coach, that'll be the big conversation. Is Fernando Mendoza the guy? Is he not? We're going to hear months of scrutiny about him, breaking him down, combine, pro days, all that. There's going to be a lot of people that say, no, he's not that. There's going to be a lot of people that say, yes, he is, all that. I think he's the guy. We'll see when it's all said and done what the Raiders ultimately do. But, I mean, if I had to place money on it, if I went to FanDuel.com right now, place some money, I'd say that the Raiders are going to take him number 1 overall, be happy with their quarterback, and build around him. But I thought he did a good job in a very tough game. Again, it wasn't something that just wowed everybody. It made everyone think that he's the next greatest thing since sliced bread. But the dude could play ball, and he could play the quarterback position. I believe the Raiders found their guy. I believe he checked the final box if they needed that final box checked. I think his toughness, his grittiness, the way he got into the end zone on that 4th and 5 play, I think that just really kind of told you and embodied who Fernando Mendoza is. So seems to me like the Raiders have identified QB1, and they were all there in Miami to check it out firsthand. They also were in Miami to talk to potential head coaches. We'll talk about the head coaching search of the Silver and Black. We'll do that coming up in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about a couple of the great sponsors we have here on the show, and the first one is Indeed. If you've ever hired someone who looked good on paper but wasn't the right fit, you know how important that is. When you want candidates who truly match what you're looking for, trust Indeed sponsored jobs. Hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job posting on other sites. Indeed sponsored jobs put your post at the top of the page and help you reach the right candidates faster. I'm telling you, we're hiring at the radio station right now, and we use Indeed. And I trust and believe, man, as soon as that post went up, we had about 15 applicants. Boom, 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 boom. Just that quick. hit my inbox. Matter of fact, I spent a lot of MLK Day calling a lot of these candidates because we had so many of them. So I actually had to take and separate a big time of my day off to make sure I was able to do that. So instead of struggling to get your job post seen, Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps your listing stand out and reach quality candidates faster. That is true. That is a testimonial. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed are 90% more likely to report a hire than non-sponsored jobs. Right now, spend more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with less stress, less time, and more results using Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Listeners of this show get a $75 sponsored job credit to help give your job the premium placement it deserves at Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL. Just go to Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL right now. Support the show by saying you heard it on the Locked On Raiders podcast. Again, Indeed. Check them out. Terms and conditions apply. I also want to tell you about Robinhood. What if sports were traded like markets? Now you can put your sports IQ to work in real time with Robinhood prediction markets. It's not you against the house, it's you participating in the live market. You can buy or sell your positions live all game long. Use your sports knowledge in the moments that matter. Robinhood prediction markets changes the game. It's people moving the action. So when momentum shifts, you can move with it. You always knew the game, but you never had a dynamic way to apply that knowledge. Now you can actually take part live in a market powered by people. You're no longer just a spectator. Play by play. You decide. Trade every play with Robinhood. Now available across the U.S. Download the Robinhood app now to begin. Futures and cleared swaps trading involves significant risk and is not appropriate for everyone. Event contracts are offered by Robinhood, LLC, a registered futures commission merchant and swap firm. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Want to talk about the Raiders and their head coaching search. And boy, time in the NFL, it is wild, right? When it comes to the vacancies, the coaching vacancies across the league. At one point, there was 10 head coaching jobs open. This has been a wild year. Every year, 6 to 7 spots are normally what come available after every single regular season. This year, coaches got fired, coaches stepped down, coaches got fired after playoffs. I mean, just wild things happen. The latest on Monday, Sean McDermott and his time in Buffalo came to end after 9 seasons, 8 playoff appearances, a 98-50 regular season record, 5 AFC titles. The Buffalo Bills decided to move on from Sean McDermott. And it's funny, I actually talked about Buffalo and Sean McDermott, how that could possibly be a split in the way, but I thought that would happen only if he had lost in the wild card round against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Once they beat Jacksonville and advanced in the playoffs, I thought, okay, he's going to be good. And then they lost to Denver, right? Josh Allen had probably the worst game of his career, right? At least his playoff career, he had the worst game. The Bills turned the ball over 5 times, and it still took overtime for them to defeat Denver. And then Denver ended up losing Bo Nix because he broke his ankle, so he's out for the rest of the season. So now Jarrett Stidham, old friend Jarrett Stidham, is going to be the guy that's going to be under center for the Broncos as they take on the Patriots this time around. And so as I mentioned on Monday's show, well, the Patriots are probably going to be headed to the Super Bowl. But with that being said, the way it stands right now when it comes to the coaching search, there are 6 jobs still open. The Bills, Steelers, Ravens, Browns, Cardinals, and Raiders. And why is that when I said that there was 10 at one time? Well, we already knew the Giants was Phil with John Harbaugh. The Falcons, they came in agreement with Kevin Stefanski. We knew that. But the Dolphins on Monday hired Jeff Hafley, the defensive coordinator from the Packers, so that's one that's off the radar for the Raiders. And then Robert Saleh late on Monday. Matter of fact, right as the national championship game was getting wrapped up, Adam Schefter announced that Robert Saleh was going to agree to a deal with the Tennessee Titans. So now Harbaugh's with the Giants, Stefanski with the Falcons, Hafley with the Dolphins, Saleh with the Titans. Again, leaving the Bills, Steelers, Ravens, Browns, Cardinals, and Raiders. The only problem is there's 3 really good jobs there. Bills, Steelers, and Ravens. Browns, Cardinals, and Raiders, I would say, are probably in that next tier. And I would say that the Raiders are the next one up. I say Bills, Ravens, Steelers in that order, and then the Raiders. And you know what? You might even be able to put the Raiders in front of the Steelers because the Steelers have a lot of old dudes on the squad, and they don't have a quarterback. So the Raiders at least have their opportunity to go get their quarterback, and they have a lot of salary cap space, and they can have a completely young roster with the 10 draft picks. So you can actually move them up. But you know that the Bills and Steelers and Ravens are all really good franchises. So those are the 6 that are still left. Here's the schedule, according to Adam Schefter. Monday, the Raiders met with former Dolphins head coach Mike McDaniel. I would be interested in him as a head coach if I saw what his staff looked like. I wouldn't be interested in him as an offensive coordinator only because he'll be out of there pretty quickly. he won't last long. So if he were to go in 1 year with, say, Jesse Minter and be the OC, I think he would get plucked away as a head coach somewhere pretty soon. And then all of a sudden they'd have to come up with a new system. And again, when you're working with a brand new quarterback, you want to have some familiarity there for at least a little while. So the Raiders met with McDaniel on Monday. On today, they're supposed to meet with defensive coordinator Jesse Minter from the Chargers, and also Panthers defensive coordinator Ejiro Evero. So those two are supposed to meet in person today. These are all taking place in Miami. Wednesday was supposed to be Packers defensive coordinator Jeff Hafley, but that's off the books, obviously, now that he's the Miami Dolphins head football coach. So they got those two lined up today. They can't interview Davis Webb, the Broncos quarterback coach, again till after championship weekend, so that's the 26th. Kevin Stefanski, hired by the Falcons. Matt Nagy, the Chiefs OC, don't think that the Raiders are interested in him. Vance Joseph, the Broncos defensive coordinator, they can't interview him again until after championship weekend. They're still playing. Same thing goes with Clint Kubiak, the Seahawks OC. Jesse Minter they're meeting with him today. Evero they're meeting with today, and Mike LaFleur can't interview him until after championship weekend. Same with Nathan Shieldhouse, Rams passing game coordinator, can't interview him, and Chris Shula, Rams defensive coordinator, can't interview him until after championship weekend. And then Clay Kubiak, they met with him, 49ers OC, and Joe Brady, Bills OC. I'm interested in Joe Brady, the Bills OC. I want to see what he's going to do. You know, now that there's an opening in Buffalo, is Brian Daboll going to try to get that spot? Are they going to ask Josh Allen, and he's going to lean towards Brian Daboll since that was offensive coordinator that helped develop him when he get into the league? Is he going to try to roll with Joe Brady because he's already there? So that could take a couple candidates out of the mix for the Raiders if they're really going full throttle for that Raiders job. But honestly, when it's all said and done, I think it's coming down to Clint Kubiak or Davis Webb. That's just my gut feeling. I just feel like it's going to come down to those two guys. I do like the Rams guys like Mike LaFleur and Nathan Shieldhouse. I like those guys too. And coming from the Sean McVay tree, you're not going with a bad guy at all. But I just feel like the way that, you know, the kind of the tea leaves are lining up, I feel like it's either going to be Kubiak or Davis Webb as the Raiders head football coach. But again, they can't meet with those guys in person until after the championship weekend, which is coming up this weekend. So since they're still coaching, the Raiders have to wait. And again, it goes back to AFL Godfather's tweet that he put out that you're going to have to wait another week, for some news on the Raiders head coaching search. So I don't shake a stick at that. I don't close a blind eye to that and say, he doesn't know what he's talking about. He's somebody that's in the building. I know he knows me. I probably know him without knowing that that's him. Right? We exchanged DMs before. I know he's got respect for me and my work. I got respect for him and his work, even though I don't really know who he is by name. But apparently, he's a guy around the Raiders organization, so I know that he knows what's going on inside the building. So that's the latest and the greatest today. 2 interviews lined up, at least for right now. We could find out some more information a little bit later on, but defensive coordinator Jesse Minter and Panthers defensive coordinator Ejiro Evero are going to be meeting with the Raiders in Miami today as they're still there from the national championship game. Again, watching Fernando Mendoza and company win that natty and seeing what they could possibly do with their potential number 1 overall pick, their franchise quarterback, moving forward. So that's the latest and the greatest when it comes to the head coaching search. It's not a whole lot of news to report, just a couple interviews that are going to take place, interview that's not going to take place because, well, it can't now because the head coach, Jeff Hafley, is now in Miami. And we'll see what happens when it comes to this upcoming weekend and who the Raiders can talk to and who they choose to talk to. But what's on your mind? Your calls and texts will close out the show. 707-654-4693. We'll hear from you next. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about a couple more sponsors we have here on the show, and the first one is DripDrop. Kicking off the year feeling good is the goal, right? Honestly, hydration is the easiest win. So when I stay on top of it, my energy, my focus, and my mood all level up. But let's be real, plain water doesn't always cut it, especially when you're grinding through long days, hitting the gym, or just trying to stay consistent with your health goals. That's where DripDrop comes in. Doctor-developed, proven fast hydration that helps your body and mind work better. Think clearer, focus, better energy, elevated mood, even that fresh skin glow. And my experience with DripDrop's been fantastic. You've got to get a bag just like I did to experience it, but they've got so many different flavors. You just drop it into your water bottle, shake it up, shake it up, shake it up, shake it. Really good. Fruit punch, strawberry lemonade, cherry, grape, plenty of great flavors. Not too sweet, not bland. It's perfect, right? Great blend of electrolytes and glucose, rapid absorption, delivering 3 times the electrolytes and half the sugar of leading sports drinks. And it tastes great. right? The flavors are really good. There are 16 original flavors and 8 zero sugar options to choose from. DripDrop science-backed formula is trusted by firefighters, medical professionals, and over 90% of the top collagen proteins because it rehydrates you faster and more effectively than water alone. So right now, DripDrop is offering all listeners of the Locked On Raiders podcast 20% off your first order. Go to DripDrop.com, use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL. That's DripDrop.com, promo code LOCKEDONNFL for 20% off. Stock up now at DripDrop.com and use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL. I also want to tell you about FanDuel. FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. Every game day during the NFL playoffs, FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action. Right now, every NFL playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost pack waiting for them inside the app. Each game day, you'll see a pack loaded with multiple profit boosts you can apply to bets you like the most. So you do this like this. Open your profit boost pack first thing on game day and see what boost you want to apply. The boost lets you lean into your game day instincts, whether you're backing momentum, defense, quarterback play, or coaching. And the boost gives you more juice on the bets that you already like instead of forcing you to bet something new. Every play feels bigger, and the boosts make your bets feel that way too. You make your picks, then apply your profit boost to go after even bigger payouts while the playoffs keep rolling on. So visit FanDuel.com, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day. Here we go, Raider Nation. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Your calls and texts draft that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. And we'd like to also thank you so much for making this the first listen of the day. We'll go ahead and start out with a text. We got more texts today than calls. The first text comes from San Diego Raider. It's really quick. Mendoza, Raiders, San Diego Raider. Enough said. So there you go. Obviously watching the national championship game, that text came in right after that 4th and 5, 12-yard touchdown run to give Indiana a 10-point lead. Miami would battle back, but that was a big-time play, big Stones play. All I did was tweet out Mendoza, wow, and it got like 300, 400 retweets just because, well, everybody knows exactly what I was talking about. So thank you, San Diego Raider, for that text. Up next, got another text from Samuel from Oakland. Hey, Q. Sam from Oakland, just wanted to talk a little bit about the coaching search. I believe the Raiders have their options pretty much set. Honestly, I think Davis Webb is very high, and I believe close in the mix is one of those guys from the Rams organization. I really believe if the Raiders end up with one of those guys, we're in good hands. I think now it's finding the right pairings, a head coach OC or head coach DC, depending on what options they go. The other thing, Mendoza has to be the pick. His performance throughout the season has been great, but in the playoffs, the young man has been dominant. I really believe with Bowers, Genty, Mendoza, and some cap room to bring in the O-line, help the Raiders could very well be in the 5-6 win next season. I trust in SpyTech and the scouting department. Thanks again, Q. Go Raiders. That's from Sam in Oakland. And yeah, I agree. I think that Mendoza's the guy for every reason that you mentioned. The playoffs is a different animal, and he's been getting it done. And as far as Davis Webb, I think that he's a big option. I think Clint Kubiak is a big option. I'm really interested, though, now that the Bills' job is in the mix, how that affects what the Raiders are trying to do and who they're trying to land. Does that push them down the pecking order, or do they already kind of have their guy lined up and their guy is pretty comfortable with them? Like, that's what we don't know until we find out. But I do, when you add another team in the mix, especially a team like the Buffalo Bills that has a MVP quality quarterback in Josh Allen, that's obviously going to make that job a little bit more attractive. But really good text, man. And yeah, just watching the playoffs and seeing Indiana now national champions, I think that Fernando Mendoza definitely is that guy. Thanks for the text. Appreciate you. Up next, got a call from Jacob Mazza. He's calling from North Carolina. He's calling to talk about the Raiders having the number 1 overall pick, him getting a new vehicle and more. Yeah, Jacob's got a story to tell. Here he is, Jacob Mazza.
Hey, Q. Hey, Ari. Hey, Raider Nation. This is Jacob Mazza out of beautiful Wilmington, North Carolina. Fellas, waking up this morning, I'm drinking my coffee, I'm listening to y'all's radio show, and I'm listening to it, and for some reason, like, today's a beautiful day, beautiful January. It's like one of those rare, beautiful Januaries that happens from, like, when the day before is so rainy and nasty, and when this new day comes, it's beautiful. And like 2026 has been so good to me so far, and so good to the Raiders. We got the first overall pick. And so like I was doing this thought exercise, like, what is this like in my life? And I just recently got a new vehicle, right? I got this new Honda, immediately put the Raiders decal on it because that's how I roll. Anyways, my last vehicle was like a Jeep, right? And something was always breaking on it, right? The power steering pump, or it was the right rear brake, like the cylinder was going out. the alternator, the power steering pressure lines would go out. It was this, it was that, and it just, I kind of related the Raiders to being like a vehicle. It's just like, I don't want to rent these other cars, and these other cars are like NFC teams that I am watching in the playoffs. And I'm like, go Panthers, because I live in the Carolinas, and they're black and silver with some of that Carolina blue. And I mean, it goes hard as hell. It's just like, it's my side chick, kind of in the sense. But, like when the Raiders ain't any good, I got to watch somebody, right? But like, I'm always thinking like, I don't want to drive this enterprise vehicle. I want to drive my vehicle. This damn Jeep looked good as hell, just rolling up through everything. And like, ever since John Gruden, it seems like the vehicle has been impounded. But now in 2026, we just married this hot Latina chick, and her dad is Tom Brady, and Tom Brady's like, hey, you need to get to work. And I'm like, hey, Tom Brady, if you want me to get to work, I need my vehicle running properly. It's impounded and all things are messed up with it. And he's like, okay, well, let's go fix it in the form of a freaking first overall pick. That's Fernando Mendoza. And now it's like this Jeep is not only a Jeep, but it's like an Autobot. So like, I'm just over here looking at Fernando Mendoza like he's Optimus Prime. And Q, RA Raider Nation, I'm pretty sure that this isn't going to make the show because I'm nothing plus apparently. So anyways, that's how I kind of relate it, and it seems like we're about to get our vehicle back and start, beating the Raiders again, so I'm, like, all fired up.
Jacob, thank you for the call. You took this story in so many directions, my man. I had no idea where you were going for a while. I'm not going to lie to you. I was like, all right, this is going somewhere. I don't know where he's going. My man done told me about every car repair he done needed, right? I'm like, man, we've got a sponsor for that somewhere, right? We've got a sponsor that can help you assist with all those different car repairs. But no, I get what you're meaning, and it does feel like it's a new day. The Raiders are going to have an opportunity to get their new, as you're trying to tie it in, their new car, their new vehicle. Fernando Mendoza is their new hope, right? The guy that's got the grit, the guy that's got the toughness, the guy that's got the accuracy. He could be that franchise quarterback. You got to do right by him. You got to build up the offensive line. You got to make sure you put the weapons around him. It's no good to have a really nice car if you don't take good care of it, right? So there you go. He's going to get scrutinized a lot. There was a lot, like I said, there was people that were texting me throughout the course of the game. No, he's not the right guy. He's not. Trust me on this. He's not the right guy, Q. You don't want him. Look, I'm going to leave that up to the Raiders. I believe he's the right guy. They're obviously going to go through their process. They got the scouts. They've got Tom Brady, a guy that knows a little something about quarterbacks. Not saying he's a great talent evaluator because we don't know that. But if anyone could sit there and say, yeah, this is a really good quarterback, he's got some traits that we like, it'd be a guy like him. Thanks so much for the call. Definitely appreciate you. And congrats on your new car. Up next, got a text from Avant Raider. He says, how many of us held our breath when Mendoza delivered that dive rushing touchdown? That was incredible. I was Avant Raider. Yeah, I didn't even hold my breath. I just was like, wow. I saw that. I was like, okay, that's the guy. There's no doubt about it. That just shows you the toughness that he has, the way that he wants it, the will to win. That's something that should get everybody in Raider Nation excited, fired up, knowing that he has that. Now, you don't want to go out there and put yourself in harm's way all the time, right? That's something that we talk about with Jackson Dart in New York with the Giants, but he didn't really put himself in harm's way. He just knew it was 4th and 5, I have to get it. So he went and got the first down, and then he said, you know what, I can get the touchdown. I'm going to do it. And he did. So I love the tenacity. And, again, I've said it many times. I think he'll be the best quarterback that the Raiders have had since 2016, Derek Carr. And you know what Derek Carr did in 2016? He made plays like that. He used his legs. He dove. He did all kind of, stuff like that athletically. And then he broke his ankle. And he was never the same guy. And that's, I don't blame him. That's a big-time injury. But it's just – you could tell the difference after he got injured, the willingness he had or unwillingness he had to actually use his legs. But thanks so much for the text. I appreciate you. We'll double up with text. This one comes from John C. in Denver. Hey, Q, all I have to say is Fernando's the pick. He just checked another box by showing he can overcome referees working against him, which he'll see as a Raider as well. John C. in Denver. Yeah, I mean, this dude got drilled in the mouth. It was a clear targeting call. I mean, he got bloodied. He should have definitely got that call. He didn't. There was other plays that he didn't get, calls going for him. And the thing about it is he didn't cry about it. He didn't complain about it. He didn't, throw a fit to the officials. He just kept going. He just kept plucking away. And so between the run in the playoffs, what he did in the regular season against Penn State, making throws on Sunday to have to win the game, make a comeback, what he did against Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game, just all those different things that he did. The win against Oregon that he had in the regular season on his way to win the Heisman Trophy. He put it on the line again in the national championship game and, again, showed why he won the Heisman Trophy. So, yeah, he checked all the boxes for me as well. Thanks so much for the text. I appreciate you. Got a call from Raider X. He's calling to talk about Mendoza ahead of the national championship game. Here he is, Raider X.
Yo, Q, this is Raider X. Just wanted to chat some Mendoza talk in anticipation for tonight's championship game. And just the overall, the work that he's put out so far. Obviously, you see the numbers, and the numbers aren't, that gaudy as some people would want for your overall quarterback and seeing the explosive stuff and so forth. But the efficiency and the leadership and the off-field stuff is something definitely that we have to, embrace as an organization. Very similar, and I think that needs to go into the coaching search is the efficiency, because obviously, you see his throws, his plays, and how he works on that side of the field and being so, fantastic as a quarterback this year. And even though he had some good showings out in Cal, but looking on how the offense is scripted around him, you want an offensive coordinator that can, give him those type of plays and also have a strong running game, which is typical, which anybody really would want, is that, lean on the running game, and have that pass off of. So, looking at that, really thinking about, that McDaniels, looking at an OC, some of those coordinators, that Kubiak, possibly as the offensive coordinator, and going back to having somebody else. I think, just having that in consideration. Last but not least, really want to go off track there on that Trinidad Chambliss. Not too sure that that's the answer in any round for anybody, but really like that kicker. Looks like if the Raiders do have something to move on from, let's make sure that we have a strong kicker. Long ball, accurate, cheap. Something to consider. This is Raider X out.
X-Man, thanks so much for the call. Appreciate you. And I like what Mendoza brings to the table, for sure. He's not a guy who's going to put up some stupid, crazy numbers. He's not going to wow you at all stages of the game. You got to put a team around him, but he has heart, right? He's got that grit. When things aren't going right, he's got the leadership to get it all together. To me, he feels like the guy. He really does. And it feels like that this has been, perfectly wrapped up for the Raiders to go and get their franchise quarterback, put him in a position they haven't been in a very long time, and start to build that team around him. And it's going to be a slow grind. It's not going to be something that's going to be done overnight, but that's okay. You pair him with the right coach, get the right players around him, and things will get turned around pretty quickly as far as I'm concerned. Thanks so much for the call. Appreciate you. And we'll get one more text. AB out of Inglewood. Morning, Q. It's AB out of Inglewood. 2 words. Sean McDermott. If Tom Brady could bring in Sean McDermott, that'd be great for this franchise. Yes, the Bills have Josh Allen, but we saw how he was able to build the Bills into an annual Super Bowl contender without big names aside from Allen and Cook. He offers stability, accountability, and creativity. Imagine him as a head coach with Nate Shieldhouse or Davis Webb as his OC. This would be such a huge pairing with Mendoza, possibly. Let's do it, Raiders. That's AB out of Inglewood. He's throwing Sean McDermott's name in the hat for the Raiders head coaching search. That's an interesting name. I know that there was a lot of teams that reached out to McDermott as soon as he got fired. I do know that. I know Richie Incognito went on Twitter and said that the Raiders should be highly interested in him for every reason that you just mentioned. I just feel like in my heart that the Raiders want to go someone young and want to pair him with the young quarterback and let them grow together. That's just kind of where I've been leaning the whole time. I think they want to go young offensive, but if you go McDermott who's defensive, there could be something there. You can, and have him as the head coach and then bring in somebody as the OC that, like a Shieldhouse or someone else. But then again, you run the risk of losing them. But, that's the chance you take. And if you do lose them, that means the Raiders team is successful. I hadn't really thought about McDermott as a Raiders head coach. But, obviously he had a heck of a run there in Buffalo. So thanks so much for that, AB. We do appreciate it. And that's going to close out the show. I'm sure that's something we'll talk about on the Raiders Squad Show. We got that coming up this morning at 7:30. Chantel Chan, Lincoln Kennedy, and myself, we wanted to push it back a day to see the national championship game so we could react to that. So we'll have that show. A lot of people look forward to that. That'll come up. And, of course, we'll have plenty more news and notes. We'll have more on the head coaching search coming up on tomorrow's show. We'll have more calls and texts as well at 707-654-4693. So until tomorrow, Raider Nation, take care of yourself, take care of your family, love on your family. Most importantly, as always, just win, baby.